Welcome to session number 8, the last session for understanding spreadsheets as an engineering tool. Today we'll go through a sample time log or a timesheet for a project. We'll talk about how to set up homework or engineering analysis, to especially unit conversions. And then finally we're talking about how do we actually get this exported out. How do we set up a print area? How do we export it as a PDF, or how do we send it to a printer? So, right off the bat, we have the time log. This is a pretty simple time log. Somebody's recorded the number of dates. They probably used the date fill down. Now, I used a formula here when I did this. I usually used a lookup table. But how do I find the lookup table? I said, look up what day of the week this happens to be, and it'll return a number between 0 and 7. And when I did that, I used that lookup over here, and so I returned the date. That was kind of important to me, so I could know things like, oh, a Tuesday or Thursday, I know I was going to class. So it's a little easier for me to keep some notes. And yes, you could type those in yourself and repeat them and stuff, but it's just nicer. Anytime you have the spreadsheet do it yourself, you want to do it. Then I had the count, the hours, and then I had a sum of the hours, and I had a notes section out here. So let's do this on our own. So we have a project timeline, and it starts on 6/1. And it goes for about 2 weeks. So I'm come down here, and I'm looking over in the top right. It says there's 14 rows. I'm gonna say fill series, and this is the date 1. Okay, I'm gonna come back up here and make that a little wider. I'm not gonna do the date. Oh, here, let me move this up 1. This is the day. This is the hours, and then notes. I'm going to grab those and put a border around them. Put a border around it. I'm going to size those. In fact, the notes actually probably needs to be even a little wider, so I can enter some nice notes. Okay, and at the bottom of my project, I'm going to put down, I want to do the sum. So I'm going to tell my customer or my professor or something, here's the total number of hours I worked on this project. And I also want to know how many days I worked on this project. So I'm going to use the count function. And all I'm going to do there is, I don't care, if as long as I don't enter a 0 somewhere, I want to count it. So I spent 2 hours in class, 2 hours on that, 2 hours, 2 hours. I'm looking through here. Okay, of that I spent 4 days working on it. That's my count. But my sum of my number of hours was 8. I spent a little time doing homework. A couple more times. So let me go back up here and say this was class. This was homework. You'll notice that here, that as soon as I start typing the word H, it found out there was already something in that column with H, so it started trying to fill it in. Up here, as long as I use the same thing, it did it. Hey, that's not bad. So I've got kind of some nice contemporaneous notes. And all of a sudden I realized that the semester isn't 2 weeks long. It's actually a lot longer than that. So I'm going to come in here, and you're going to notice I'm going to grab before the last entry. I'm going to add another couple entries. Insert. You'll notice though it's got that last date down there. Grab that date, come down, fill series, and as long as I grabbed it in the middle and inserted my columns, that when I come back up in here, notice the total keeps on going right along the way it's supposed to. The total is doing fine. If I had inserted here at the end of my table, not in the middle, let me go ahead and fill the date down. Notice that the border is gone. But now when I come in and go, oh, well, I really spent 2 hours right there, notice the formula did not act up right. So when I look at that formula, I notice it stops at row 58. We're supposed to stop at row 63. So I'm going to fix that. I'm going to highlight this. the count should have ended at 63. Okay, I'll go back and put my border in. So that's how I can enter back in that way. Timesheets, project logs, very important to do. One thing that some customers will ask you is they'll ask you to enter it contemporaneously. Contemporaneously means at the time that the activity occurred. You wouldn't do what I just did here and you wouldn't fill in 2 or 3 weeks at a time. Every day you would make an entry into your time log. They call that contemporaneous. If you keep contemporaneous notes, people have a tendency to believe you more. Instead of you saying, well, give me a minute or two or give me an hour or two, let me go put my time card together. If your time card is always ready, your timesheet's always ready, people have a tendency to believe you more. Okay, we've done that. Now let's talk about data analysis or homework, where you might be doing it with units. So a simple homework might be is we start off with our name, project, the date, what homework it was. Do the same thing if this was an engineering project. You just type out what customer this happened to be. Notice I have a motor here that has 2 horsepower. It's how many hours a day it was used. It was only used during the weekdays. There's 5 days in a week. 52 weeks in a year. Tells you the conversion between foot-pounds and horsepower and how many seconds there are in an hour. Does this look familiar? This should be like you were doing it in beginning algebra when you were canceling units. You put a little slash between your hour here and an hour here, so it crosses that out. You're left with seconds on top. Well, here's a second on bottom, so you cross the seconds out. The horsepower on bottom, horsepower on top. Notice these 2 are in gray. I put those 2 in gray because those are things that the customer or I'm going to enter. And then these are constants. I don't want to change those. Now, not this as I couldn't change. What if I said was, I don't want this just running Monday through Friday. I want this motor to be running every day of the week. So I'm going to change that to 7 days in a week because it's running every day of the week. As my numbers change, my answers changed. What if I told you that we're only going to run the motor, we're going to run it every day of the week, but we're only running it for 2 hours? Notice this was gray, this wasn't gray. This actually uses a formula that goes up and says pick the number of hours so that both of these, whether I'm doing foot-pounds per year or watt-hours per year, I'm going to use the same information. So I'm going to change it to a 5 horsepower motor. Notice this changed. So notice these are in yellow and they got a big border around them. That tells me that's my answer. That's what my customer or my professor or the problem was asking for. Here's another one where we're doing viscosity. Same thing. Not too difficult there. Here's one where we're checking. We had a different one out of a different textbook, a different conversion. They said, well, you can just change this and it'll get you to this answer. So we went to this as a check just to see how close that answer was to that answer. It's pretty close. Not exact, but pretty close. Here's another one. I've got so many RPMs. How many minutes was it running? How many minutes per hour? How many hours there were in a day, and how many years were you doing it. So for 5 years, a motor that's running continuously for 725 RPMs would be running 1.9 times 10 to the 9th revolutions. So, and when I look at that formula, it's got all these things multiplied by each other. So, but what it really only wants me to change is, that right there was how many RPM is it really running. Now, I might come back and change it and say, well, I really only want to know what it's going to do in 1 year. How many revolutions does it turn in 1 year? So it's not to say you can't change these. It's just this is not normally what you change. This is normally what your input is. These are all the constants, and then finally my answer. Notice I have the units right there beside it. So that's a normal kind of a homework kind of assignment. That's really cool. I'm ready to go up. I'm going to go hit File, Print. I want to print that out. It's going to be beautiful. I hit the word print, and no, it's not. It says it's 21 pages long. It says it's going to print that. This is nowhere near what I wanted to do, so I'm going to hit Escape button. When I come out here, I look. You see the little hidden lines? It's telling me that's what it's going to be printing, and a lot of these pages are going to be empty. Here's my time log. Boy, my time log doesn't, it's breaking it right across. This is absolutely terrible. I only want to print this one thing. The unit conversions is all I wanted to print. I want it to be 1 page long. So I'm going to come in. I'm going to grab just what I want to print. I'm going to go to Page Setup, Page Layout, Set Print Area. Notice the little hidden lines changed this right here, but I've still got this problem right here. Look at that. That says that that's printing, but it's going to print it on 2 pages. I can prove that by going to hit File, Print. It'll give me a preview. It'll show me. Well, it also shows it in portrait. I want it to be in landscape, so it's long ways. Look at that. Now it's printing on 1 page. Absolutely perfect. Okay, I could just go up and hit the print button and send it to the particular printer. I could pull this down and say, please send it to a PDF file. It would PDF it. Or I could go up and say, I want to, don't cancel, do File, File Save As, and I can actually pull down here and I can say, please save it as a Open Calc file. Hey, somebody else has Open Calc. I want to use Open Calc. I want to save it as a PDF file. I want to save it. Remember we talked about comma separate value file. I can send it as that file. I can send it as an old version of Excel. So I can save it a lot of different ways. So now we know how to print it out. We could also do a screen capture like we did before and move this over to Word or some other thing I was trying to get it to print it out as well. Okay, so we've now finished up all the sessions in the spreadsheets. We talked about tools, we talked about the functions, we did the lookup table, we did what makes repetition go a little faster, we did text, we did conditional, the if statements, we did some graphics, and we did a couple examples. Hopefully you got something out of this, and it does you good as an engineer. Good luck, guys.